Let's now bring in MSNBC national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilemann, as well as MSNBC senior national security reporter, David Rohde. And David, let's start right there with this sort of seemingly almost out of nowhere announcement from President Trump about the nuclear testing that he's ordered up. It seems as if in response to what Vladimir Putin had said earlier in the day. But the United States, as we've been noting, has not done this since 1992. No country has done a full-on test to what he's describing in decades. Talk to us about what this would entail. This is not something you can just turn overnight, but potential, space for worry.
It's very unusual. There was a determination decades ago that we don't really need to do these tests. We've tested various kinds of nuclear weapons, and they work for better or worse. And so this is, I guess, a diplomatic move, maybe a response to Russia. It's strange. It was on the eve of the meeting with President Xi of China. And then where would this happen? I mean, these tests occur and they leave huge amounts of, radioactivity. So there's a million questions here. And, we can talk more about the talks with President Xi, but it was interesting. There's a lot of things that weren't discussed or weren't resolved. So I don't know if the nuclear test thing was a way to divert attention from that. But again, there's no military rationale for carrying out these tests.
It did seem like Trump was set on de-escalating in that meeting with Xi Jinping, focusing on areas of agreement, and they seem to have left some of the thorny issues aside. We certainly see if they could arise again, perhaps in the form of the next all-caps Truth Social post. John Heilemann, President, is airborne right now, coming back on Air Force One, and he will land at a Washington that's still shut down. Federal government shut down now for nearly a month. I reported yesterday for The Atlantic, we've been talking about it all morning, about how the president has been really MIA in that fight. He's been very busy with other matters, but he's deliberately stayed out of the shutdown, in part because they thought Democrats would fold. They haven't. And in fact, it's Republicans, per polling, who are taking the short end of the stick here. So what's your read? What do you think the president's next move will be? Once he does land, does he finally engage in this shutdown debate, particularly as some key benefits about to run out?
Jonathan, in any normal presidency, the president would have been engaged a lot earlier than this. And Trump took a very hands-off, took a very hands-off approach to the putting together of the one big, beautiful bill, which was, it kind of sits at the center of this shutdown fight, even though that bill is now law, the possibility of undoing it in various ways or revising it in various ways. Trump had some priorities. You'll recall, he at one point floated the notion of raising taxes on the rich. He got getting rid of the carried interest loophole, things that have been on his populist agenda for a long time. As soon as Republicans on the Hill pushed back on him, he sort of backed down and stepped away and let them take the ball forward. And he's continued with that degree on this big legislative front, continued to show a remarkable kind of passivity in the face of these very large, not just very large in terms of policy, but very large in terms of the politics. The consequences of both the big, beautiful bills passage and the government shutdown are massive political events, in addition to having huge effects on the lives of ordinary Americans and in terms of reshaping American policy. I think, when we get to November 1st, which, as you know, is relatively soon here. It's, I think, if my calendar is right, it's 2 days away. The rubber is going to meet the road. And I think one of the things that's going to happen here is that Republicans on the Hill are going to start to beseech Trump in a more aggressive way than they have so far to come in here and try to be the person who solves this problem for them, because it is a problem for them. You could argue it's also a problem for Democrats and for millions of Americans. But right now, the biggest, you could see this in John Thune lashing out yesterday to some extent. The pressure is building on Republicans. And I think they're going to try to add that at some point they are going to go to Donald Trump and say, we can't get this done without you. And in that case, I think Trump is going to find himself drawn in, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, completely agree. The political pain growing for Republicans, but the real world pain will about to hit millions more Americans in the next couple of days, adding some real urgency to this. All right, both